or the righteous, pious predecessors would begin preparing, rather asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this month many, many months in advance. To the extent that some have even mentioned that they would pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the ability to witness the month of Ramadan for 6 months. That they would cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that they are able to witness this beautiful month. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for us this fasting. And the purpose of this fasting itself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us, is that it's to attain taqwa, to attain the consciousness of Allah, and to attain the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we learn from the ayat of the Quran, chapter 2, verse 183, كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So that you may become God conscious, Allah conscious in your life. So the purpose of fasting amongst many is taqwa, is to create that closeness and the awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our lives. But how does one enter the month of Ramadan in such way that they can attain taqwa? How do we enter or welcome the month of Ramadan that we can absorb this consciousness and this awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our lives? So let's look at the life of the past, the pious of the past, and see how they spent their Ramadan so that we can emulate and follow and become amongst those that can live their Ramadan like that as well. So number one thing, brothers and sisters, is that we must have the true desire to welcome the month of Ramadan. For many of us, we might have these destinations that we have in our minds, or places that we want to visit, or things that are about or supposed to happen in our life, and we anticipate those. And for some of us, who receive invitations and we visit families and relatives in their moments of celebration, we receive, wedding invitations 6 months in advance or 8 months in advance, because they're waiting for that big day, because it matters to them, because it is of importance to them. The month of Ramadan is less than a week away. And what is that anticipation in our lives? Except for grocery shopping and gathering things that we're going to do for iftar and suhoor. Spiritually, and I'm asking you, on a very normal human being level, what is our personal preparation for the month of Ramadan in a spiritual way? How is my heart ready to welcome the month of Ramadan? Not just that I'm going to fast and make tarawih and that's it. Is there truly a desire in my heart to witness the month of Ramadan, brothers and sisters? Is my heart really ready to absorb the mercy of Allah, the rahmat of Allah, the forgiveness that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the first and the foremost thing that we need to create is a sense of talab, the desire to welcome this beautiful month of Ramadan. Because unless we don't value something, we won't cherish it. We won't take care of it. Because when we value things, we take care of it. For some of us, or people, for any individual who has few of multiple things. For example, if they have few cars, and one of them is the most expensive, or something that creates a value in their mind, they'll make sure that they keep that in the garage, or they'll take care of it, or they'll park it in their driveway. Or someone has few watches, and that one that is the most expensive, they will keep it covered in the box and inside somewhere, and not just laying down. Why? Because you know the value of it. You spend time and effort and all of that behind, so you know the value of it. Brothers and sisters, Ramadan needs to be valued. We all need to ask our own selves, what is the worth of Ramadan in my eyes? What is the value of Ramadan in my eyes? Is the first question that we need to ask. The second thing, and this is what we are learning from the life of the Aslaf, the pious. The second thing that we need to do, brothers and sisters, to get ready to attain that taqwa in Ramadan, is that we need to seek forgiveness and purify our hearts. That's one of the greatest components to get ready for Ramadan, brothers and sisters. The pious before us would repent sincerely before the coming of Ramadan. And they understood that sometimes sins and disobedience can block a person from experiencing the closeness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sheikh Zakaria rahmatullah alayhi has written in his Kitab Fazail Sadaqat and says that from amongst the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does to a person who continuously commits sins and sins in loneliness when they think that no one is watching, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the lazzat of His name from their life. Lazzat means the taste of the name of Allah leaves their life. When a person enjoys sins, then you lose the taste of the dhikr of Allah. Our sajdas become empty and dry from the remembrance and the closeness of Allah. When our hearts become connected to the pursuits and the lusts and desires of this world, then it becomes difficult to absorb the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our hearts. So the second point that we need to do, brothers and sisters, is we need to prepare our heart for the month of Ramadan. We need to ask ourselves, is my heart even prepared or not? What are my eyes watching? What are my ears hearing? What am I doing and thinking at all times? As the Nabi of Allah said, "Inna fil jasadi mudghah," a piece of flesh in a human body. If it is corrupted, the entire body is corrupt. And if it is correct, the entire body is correct. And the Prophet said, it is the heart of a person. The correction of the heart is the correction of the human body. And the corruption of the heart is the corruption of the human body. Why does the eye look at haram when you know it's haram? Because the heart does not have enough fear and the taqwa and the consciousness of Allah to allow us to stop. It's like a person feeding the horse and sitting on top of it and not feeding yourself anything. And we become so overpowered by the power of that horse that it drags and pulls us around, and we have no power to hold its reins. We have fed our desires and our lusts so much that even if today I know that I need to stop myself from haram, I can't, because my desires have overtaken my own lives. أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, have you seen those who have made their desires into their own Lord, into their own Rabb? The Quran says that when their own desires become their Rabb, because when their desires tell them to do wrong, they will do wrong. Look at wrong, they will look at wrong. When they wanted to eat wrong, they will eat wrong. Why? Because their desires have taken over themselves. So the second thing, brothers and sisters, we need to do, number one, is that we need to create that talab and that desire to welcome the month of Ramadan. What is the value of Ramadan in my eyes? It's a question that I and you need to ask ourselves. Number two, we need to cleanse our heart. We need to purify our heart. We need to get our hearts ready for the beautiful month of Ramadan. Otherwise, brothers and sisters, the month of Ramadan will come and it will go, but it will never change our lives. So we need to seek the forgiveness of Allah and really, really, really purify our hearts. Another thing that we can do when we're just a week away. The month of Sha'ban was the month that Rasulullah ﷺ fasted very frequently. But if you feel that your fasting in this 1 week will not allow you to completely fast in Ramadan with all of your strength, then you may be exempted. But maybe on a Monday or a Thursday or something like that. Something that you can allow you to prepare for the month of Ramadan. Your voluntary actions such as fasting, your qiyam at night, and spending some time in the course of the night will allow you to prepare. Then when we come into the month of Ramadan, brothers and sisters, the pious and the Ramadan of the pious was such that when Ramadan started, there was nothing else except for Quran. It was nothing else except that they spoke to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the recitation of the Quran. Brothers and sisters, make this intention within your hearts that this Ramadan, I want to commit my time to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because once we commit our time to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the excellence and the honor of this ummah has been at the time when we were connected to the Quran. When we let go of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we let go of the sunnah of the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's where we see the zawal and the decline of the ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam left us with the Quran and with the sunnah. And the time that we are in right now, in the month of Ramadan that we're reaching, brothers and sisters, there's no greater time to reconnect ourselves with the Quran. It is my humble request for all of us that we have time. It's not that I'll see if I have time. We need to make time. When something is important for you, you will make time. You won't see if you have time. Wallahi, brothers and sisters, just look at your own lives. When something is important to you, for our young ones, maybe it's a game that you need to watch, or sports that you need to play, or the friends or the elders to go to someone's house and visit, or someone to do something extra to earn for ourselves, or anything that we consider to be valuable. It's not about me having time. It's about me making time because it's important for me. Brothers and sisters, we need to make time for Quran. There's no excuse anyone could ever say that I don't have time to recite the Quran in Ramadan. I know that social media and our phones and all of these things are important. But for many of us, if we check our phones and our screen times, I promise you, if not more than half, at least a quarter of that time you will see was just wasted without any productivity, without anything beneficial for us. Just check your own screen times and see if you can allocate at least an hour in Ramadan. Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, one Quran in the morning, one Quran in the evening, and one in Taraweeh. 61 Quran. For someone to tell me this, you will say, you know what, you have gone mad. You don't even have enough hours to read this. Brothers and sisters, we have never witnessed the barakah of Quran. It's not about the time. It's not about the amounts. It's about the barakah that Allah provides certain slaves of His, that they can accomplish great things in their lives. It's us that we need to commit ourselves, brothers and sisters. So when we look at the life of the pious, we see that the Ramadans were spent with hearts that were clean. Their nights were spent in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What greater moments to get all of your needs in the month of Ramadan, in the time of tahajjud, and sitting down or putting your forehead down. And if Allah gives you that ability to shed a single tear for the love of Allah, wallahi, brothers and sisters, your lives could change, or my life could change. It only takes a single drop of fear or tear for the fear of Allah can change our lives, brothers and sisters. It can change our taqdeer. Hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dua and sadaqah can change your taqdeer and destiny. Something that's written for you, not my words. These are the words of a Sadiq wal Masduq, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that dua and sadaqah can change your taqdeer. Imagine tahajjud, imagine Ramadan, imagine your sajda and bowing down and putting your forehead to the ground and being able to ask Allah, what can be a greater accomplishment than that, brothers and sisters? So a Ramadan that is filled with clean heart, a Ramadan that is spent in spending moments all alone in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a Ramadan that is spent in which we're able to connect ourselves with the Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing, two more things and I'll conclude. A Ramadan where we become more generous than usual. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most generous human being. And we're talking about the Ramadan of the pious. How can I emulate my Ramadan like them? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most generous individual. Generous meaning he would share whatever he had. And generosity does not mean large numbers. It means whatever you can do in your own capacity. Whatever you can do in your own capacity. Because it's never the numbers. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu on the time of Tabuk brought everything. And he said, I left the name of Allah and His Rasul in my house. Even though Umar radiyallahu anhu had brought much more things. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, what did you leave behind? It's the intention, the niyyah, from your own capacity of what you can really do. So the month of Ramadan is to become a little bit more generous as well. Increase your charity in any capacity that you can. So brothers and sisters, a Ramadan with a clean heart, a Ramadan where you spend alone time with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in tahajjud, a Ramadan that you connect yourself with the Quran, the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a Ramadan that you spent with charity and sadaqah and giving for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And last but not least, brothers and sisters, a Ramadan that you bring goodness to the lives of others. Make this as a habit, that you'll do something good for someone every day of the month of Ramadan. Let every day of Ramadan be a day that changes and affects someone's life. So again, brothers and sisters, what are the takeaways? 3 quick things as we conclude. Make sincere tawbah today to cleanse your heart to welcome the month of Ramadan. It's not tomorrow. Let me wait for Ramadan to begin. I'll make sincere tawbah. Brothers and sisters, so many people that we know personally were with us this Ramadan, last Ramadan, but they will not be with us this Ramadan. So many of us know people in our lives, and for many of you sitting in this masjid, people who were in the same suhoor, sitting down with us, they are not with us. Time is of essence, brothers and sisters. So number one thing, we need to make sincere tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the beginning of Ramadan, to cleanse and open our hearts. Number two, turn our hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with giving time and commitment. And last but not least, brothers and sisters, small habits can make great changes and impacts in our lives. It starts with small changes, small habits that we need to change in our lives. If there has been a thing that you wanted to let go in your life for years and not had the ability and opportunity, Ramadan is the best time for that. It's the best time to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help and assistance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to live our life according to the Quran and the beautiful sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with each and every one of us and allow us to live our lives as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could be happy and pleased with us. Just a very quick announcement inshallah, starting March 7th, not next Friday, a week after, which is March 7th, 2025, Jummah timings will be as following. And inshallah will also be on our website, and also you can find that on the social media. The first salah will be at 1:10 till 1:40. The second salah will be at 2:15 to 2:30. And the third salah will be at 3:30 to 3:45. Just again, a reminder, not next week. Next week will be the normal time, right, Brother Zohaib? Next will be normal. A week after, March 7th, inshallah, the timings will change, which will be in the month of Ramadan, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 1:10 to 1:40, 2:15 to 2:30, and 3:30 to 3:35.